My name's Adam Cherko. I'm local here in New Rochelle, a real estate agent at eXp Realty and an active member of the Westchester Real Estate Investors Group, an investor myself. Happy to share and talk to anybody if you have any questions later on. What I will say during the conversation tonight, everybody, if you are not muted, if you wouldn't mind hitting the mute button. And if you have any questions, please feel free to use the chat function on Zoom. Rochelle's there. She'll try to answer some things as we go. Otherwise, we can hit some of those questions at the end. So I have the pleasure of introducing Luis Fernandez. Thank you so much again for being here. Luis and I have met a couple of years ago, actually, at his wonderful restaurant in New Rochelle called Juicy Chicken, which is a Peruvian restaurant, and he'll talk a little bit about that, I hope. He's opening again tomorrow after going through the pandemic here. So, but Luis, why don't you give us a little bit of background about yourself and basically how you got started in real estate?
Sure. So, thank you, Adam and Rochelle, for having me. My journey starts, after corporate America. I was a sales guy for a corporation. I worked there for close to 9 years, and I did sales, and I did pretty well. And like anything in sales, in corporate America, you didn't get compensated to the rate of the returns you're bringing the company. And I was buying my first property, and I came across an agent, and the agent had a little pin in her shirt that said $1 Million Agent. The agent was driving a Mercedes. I knew Mercedes. I knew nothing about Mercedes, and so it said $1 Million Agent. So I figured, this lady's making $1 million. She didn't really know too much what she was doing. So I said, listen, if this lady could do it, I certainly can, right? And that's where my real estate journey started as a realtor. At 30, I had like $17 in my pocket. Had just been engaged. I didn't have any money to take my wife now, but my fiance back then, to even friendlies and hard times, but you hit downs and then you hit ups, right? And as I became a realtor, I focused on becoming better and reading and studying and reading books and getting trainings. And 5 years later, I had one of the biggest real estate teams in Westchester County. I started solo, then I added an administrative assistant. I added some buyer's agents. By the time 10 years into it, I was doing 70 transactions. I learned the business really, really well. From the lead generation side, I was calling like 300 people a day and leading a team to do like really, really massive numbers back then, when teams weren't really existent. So that's when I started, and I started working with a lot of investors, and that's how my world started in the real estate and thinking about investing.
So you would say it really came from, as an agent, then seeing what those other investors were doing and sort of learning from their approach in purchasing, that got your bug sort of moving?
Sure. There's a couple of things that happened that make you, I was perfectly comfortable as an agent, right? When you start making a lot of money as an agent, they're like, listen, it's a great way of living. A little stressful. A little stressful. But what really happened to me is that most investors weren't doing the right thing, right? So they would use you, they would not call you back, they would take deals from you, you wouldn't be compensated. And after doing that for 10 years, given that I made a lot of money and I found a lot of properties for investors, I kind of got fed up and I said, listen, you know what? It's my time, and it really took me 10 years to really learn the business and make sure before I made my first move. But I had studied these guys, I'd studied what they did, and I was like, I would never want to treat somebody, like, Adam, you're a realtor, so sometimes people don't call you, they leave you hanging, they don't show up, they think coming 30 minutes late, it's cool. So, you got fed up,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And then, so aside from sort of learning on the job, let's say, in that career track, would you say there were any sources? Again, I mean, it was a couple years ago, right? And a lot of the people that are part of the group are either getting started, starting to learn about real estate investing, whether it be on the sales side or buy and hold or flipping and that sort of thing. What would you say has been most impactful as far as places for you to educate yourself? I mean, would it be making those connections with other people who are doing the work? Was it books? Was it videos? Was it?
Well, it was a combination. It was a combination of everything, right? It's funny that we live in New York, and it's funny that people, especially people that the people that I was dealing with that were big investors, never wanted to show you a path because they were afraid that you would eventually that your success would be their failure, right?
Mhm.
When real leaders show you the path and take you with them because you want to build something bigger. So from the investor side, I was very disappointed because nobody wanted to show you anything. So I had to go to alternate sources, such as books, such as colleagues across the country. And it's crazy how, like, in the rest of the country, people are just giving and they just give you information without anything in return. But, like, I guess the New York thing is, like, listen, if Adam succeeds, I fail, even if I've, as an agent or as a realtor. When, it's funny that nowadays I go to the auction and I see the guys that I used to sell properties and we're bidding against each other, and I always think, they come to me and I'm like, listen, buddy, you had the chance to team up with me. You know what I mean? You had the chance to do the right thing by me. By you not really taking care of me, you woke me up. You know what I mean?
Right.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. So then what guidance do you think that you would give? And I know, the way we advertise this, and we're definitely going to get into it in a few minutes as far as talking about flipping and creating a flipping business that's a wonderful structure. But what guidance would you give somebody who's looking to start getting into the flipping business?
Well, I mean, the first thing, and the first thing I'll start by, like, wholesalers, right? The first start, because that's the first step for most people. The first thing I tell people is, like, understand valuation, right? And, like, you're from New Rochelle, right? So that in New Rochelle, 3 streets one way and 3 streets a different way makes a big difference in valuation. It could be $50,000, $75,000, $100,000 in difference, right? So understanding, and even in real estate, as a realtor, when I started and I was training people, I was like, start by your market. Understand the market where you live in, whether it's a co-op, condo, just single family homes, townhomes, whatever. You're going to understand that market better than most people because, you property trading, and you're going to be more comfortable with that, right? Now, like, if you tell me, Lewis, go to Long Island, I'll be very hesitant to go to Long Island because I don't know the market. So, start with an area that you're very familiar. And I'll tell you, it's funny because I see a lot of people that are from Lower Westchester because of price points. They go up to Dutchess County, Putnam County, even Peekskill, right?
Mm-hmm.
Completely different market, right? Market shifts. Lower Westchester is still desirable. Upper Westchester, price of 2007. Peekskill was for sale. Not that it's a bad thing, right? But understanding the market is probably the best thing, right? Number two is understanding ARV, right? So, like, after repair value, right? Like, you have wholesalers that reach out to me and a lot of other investors, and where a house is really worth 300, they're saying the ARV is 375, right? You've seen those, right? And what that does is kills your credibility as a wholesaler, right? Like, you'll send me one email, you send me 2 emails, I look at it, and then you're like, this guy doesn't even know your value. Why am I even wasting my time? So you got to be 100% concise with your ARV, repair value, right, and valuation, and really be 100% aware of what's really traded, and not, real estate guys are easier because that you need 3 comps to evaluate a property, and the highest comp is not necessarily the best comp because it's just the highest comp. So you got to be conservative. You really got to be conservative and come from abundance, not scarcity.
Right. I couldn't agree more that, and I would even add to that, whether you're getting started in the wholesaling side of things or the flipping side, or even as an agent, whatever niche you're starting in, you've got to, they say, right, you got to be in 100 houses, you got to make 100 offers, right?
Absolutely.
There is nothing short of that being accurate, right? A house could be worth 500, right? If the bathroom is brand new tile and, it's not a fiberglass surround in the bathtub, and, all those little things make such a difference in the actual value of that property. And you don't know till you actually get in.
Right. Absolutely.
So what I would say is, let's start talking about your background in the flipping, right? As you've started investing in real estate, as you've left the real estate sales side, talk a little bit about as you got into flipping and sort of what you've done to make your business thrive. As you being a true entrepreneur, you've got many other different income streams. Why don't you talk a little bit about the flipping business?
Right. So, I understood early on, even before real estate, that building a team is the name of the game, right? I played soccer and, semi-professional soccer, and I understood that without a goalie, I had no team, right? And, the challenge here is this, right? That most of us want to do it by ourselves, right? And I'll tell you, if you don't have a realtor, you're brand new, or you're thinking it, and you're doing it by yourself, calling 100 realtors, you're doing something wrong, right? Number one is build a quick relationship with a realtor that's looking at houses every single day that could give you that information, right? And sometimes, us as are looking at for property, our valuation is not the best because we're not seeing 100 houses. Adam, you hit it on the spot. When I used to hire people for my team, they used to have to see 100 houses before they could even show a house, right? Because it's different. Colonial, Cape Cod sucks, right? If you're really getting into Cape Cod, you know that it's a tough sell, right? Even in the same street. So building a team from a realtor. I mean, when you're in the starting stage, having realtor relationships are super important. Attorney relationships, and then building that team through knowledge, right? And then I used to tell people all the time as an agent, and I'm sure you could relate to this, Adam. People are like, oh, I want to buy a good deal. But you're talking to every realtor. How could I concentrate on you and getting you a good deal if you're calling everybody and you have no relationship with them? I think that building relationships is everything in any business because it sets that foundation for collective growth, right? So, I don't know if I got off target there, but I think that's the base foundation to have a successful flipping business. Now, obviously, then you have to look at a lot of properties. I would say I would look at 100 properties to pick one or two, right? And that's what I spoke about, scarcity versus abundance. Mm-hmm. Most of us look at 4 houses, 5 houses, and then they're like, well, this is a winner, right? It's only a winner because you only saw 5 houses. But if you saw 100 houses, the odds of you picking the wrong house are 100% crucial, right? So not only having a realtor that's going to evaluate the property, but also perhaps getting guidance from somebody that's already done it. Mm-hmm. You see you find a lot of issues with construction that you can't even see sometimes.
Well, and so to that point, right? And I think a lot of people that, look, the first thing that really got my ears opened was going to one of those little guru workshops on a weekend, right? Where you spend a couple bucks and you learn more than you think you've ever heard in your life in 48 hours, right? And then you get hit with it's $45,000 to join this program and learn how to flip houses, right? And I think a lot of people end up getting sucked in by something like that, right? But then they get out of that, whether they purchase a package or they don't, and they're like, where do I get started, right? They just told me I need to meet every realtor in the world. So I think your point there is a great point, right? Make a relationship with one person, see if they're good at what they do, and then either find another one or use that one, and that's fine, right? So that's on the real estate side. But then they go, I don't know how to find a contractor. How do I find somebody that can do this work for me so that I can add value and flip a house, right? What would you suggest in trying to find somebody that you can trust. I mean, anybody can hit a hammer, whether or not they can do it for the right price and actually allow you to make some money, or they can hit the hammer and break a window instead of actually fixing the house, right? What are
Right.
some guidelines
So at the end of the team, at the end of the day, it's this, right? Building a team is building people, right? And sometimes, just hiring a contractor is not the right way to do it, right? Is finding a contractor, maybe teaming up with a contractor, right? My first couple deals, I teamed up with a contractor. Now, in the process, I found out that the contract didn't know jack because, right, it's part of the business, right? It's finding people that you could, the minute you want to team up with people and your mind is open to teaming up and thinking about really abundance, you could escalate to you might do a deal or two and realize it's the wrong contractor, but you'll learn a lot. And then you'll try to find it, you'll see their flaws and try to identify somebody else, right? At the end of the day, you'll have to go through 2 or 3 contractors or 4 contractors to really figure it out. It's like anything, it's like, your first house is not going to be your winning house. Your first house, you kind of got to get ready to lose money because it's kind of like getting a doctorate in finance, right? Or real estate, flipping, right? Yep. So if you're going with the thought process, you're going to make money, you're really thinking about the shiny object, which is money, instead of thinking about the activities you have to do and go through and the fails you have to go through to really get up again and do it successfully. Now, the mistakes I'll do now are nothing compared to the failures I had before, right? Because you fail once, hopefully you learn and you look for better people in your life. And when you have the right people in your life, your world changes, right? So sometimes we just want to make all the money and not anybody else money, but it's the wrong thought process,
Yeah, and to your point exactly, the partnering up with a contractor, I think, is some of the best advice ever. I have a good friend. He's in Connecticut. They just basically did a tear down and a rebuild, and I was trying to help him get through that process. And so many times he would say, "Well, the contractor just charged me X amount for this other thing, and then there are 3 extra columns sitting over there, and I'm not getting a credit for these and that and the other thing." And I said, listen, if you had made him a partner with you and shared in that profitability, he would be working to make sure that there is profitability, right? He wouldn't just be trying to drain you for every dollar you have so that he can be profitable, right?
He would show you up front what the hitting things are, right?
Yep.
Right.
I couldn't agree more. So I think that is wonderful advice to give. Who would you say right now in your business? Why don't you share with everybody kind of magnitude of what you're doing right now as far as how many projects you have going on, how active?
So we I always say we because I believe in something bigger. I don't say I, even though I'm the investor, right? Because I have a construction team. I have a lot of people in my life that help me, right? So we did 15 deals last year. And this year we were tuned to do 36 deals, but COVID happened, right?
Right.
So, things happen and it's okay. And, you shift. So, but, my idea wasn't just to build something for myself. My idea is, true leadership is building people, showing them the path and creating something bigger that everybody fits in, right? So from, I have a full-time construction crew. We now are able to build from scratch, which years ago I couldn't, right? And we could rehab. We're expanding our construction business to just regular, customers. And yeah, man, my ideal goal eventually, and might be super aggressive, is to go to Colorado or North Carolina or Georgia and build 100 houses, right? Where there's a lot of land, right?
Right.
So that's the ultimate goal, but we're here, right? And in my journey, I'll teach anybody, I'll show anybody what I do because I don't believe in competition, right? I believe that if you and I, Adam, become closer, we might team up in a deal, right? We might do bigger and better things than me being the investor. And I'll tell you, when I was an investor, that's the way, when I was an agent, that's why investors treated me. Like, you can't be part of this. Like, the world is so big to focus on small things, right?
Yep.
So I
So,
don't know if I answered your question.
at this, no, and that's fine. So at this point in doing, let's say, somewhere between 15 to 20 deals a year, right, is what we'll say, given last year, and then maybe what this year might look like. Who are some of those people that you rely on and trust? Obviously, you said you run a full-time construction crew. Are there other people that you truly lean on, whether they be accountants, lawyers?
Well, everybody. I'll tell you, everybody in my, when it's funny that when I got out of real estate, I made a commitment to do business with the people I liked,
mm-hmm.
right? Because real estate is tough, right? You might be hired by a seller and you might not like them, but there's money involved and you might have to do the transaction, even though if you're not treated correctly, right? Mm-hmm. So everybody in my circle is part of my circle and has the opportunity to invest with us. And I'll tell you, as a matter of fact, I'm as of last year, I started raising capital, and because of my returns, I have very good returns. I have even investors, local investors that are throwing money just because of the results that, you give. So to me, it's about how bigger I could get it where everybody could benefit, right? So like, even if I take a third of the profits, but I'm doing 45 transactions, 100 transactions, and everybody's benefiting from attorneys, realtors, title people, everybody, you have a true team, then perhaps I could ultimately build those 100 units that I want, you know what I mean? And take a small percentage of it, because I think the volume is the name of the game,
Yep, definitely agree. What would you say right now in your business is your favorite source of finding good deals? Is it the auctions? Is it another?
I mean, I have a lot of different buckets of business, right? Auctions is one. But auctions is, the issue with the auctions is that everybody is competing in price. They don't want to do the hard work or knocking on doors, cold calling, talking to realtors. So they just go in. They're the biggest bidder, but the biggest bidder all the time doesn't mean the most profitable bidder, right? Yes. So I have my short shells. I have a lot of relationships with realtors. I actually love calling and knocking on doors and doing it myself because I love to hunt, you know what I mean? So that's the part I like the most, actually, you know what I mean?
Okay, all right, that's awesome. Can you tell us one of the deals that maybe you're most proud of, and give us a little synopsis of what was great about that deal?
It's funny how when you start doing something, you have no clarity and you're just doing it because you're doing it, right? Mm-hmm. You think you're doing the right thing and perhaps you're not doing the right thing because you haven't talked to enough people, but whatever, maybe you don't want to share and you don't want to get everybody's opinion. So my first deal was my best and my worst deal, right? My worst and best deal because I teamed up with a contractor which really didn't know what they're doing, and because they were hungry, desperate people do desperate things, right? So the contractor was in a stage where he needed to work, and which is not a good point to be at because they're going to milk you and they're going to keep the project going forever, right? So I teamed up with the contractor. It was a 4,000 square feet home, 6 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms, built in 1920. I had to rehab the whole house, right? And I was like, looked at HGTV. This looks kind of cool. You redo the whole house. It's the biggest mistake I did because time on task, it's not efficient, right? Like, I went from a quote of having $20,000 in electric to $45,000 electric, right? Mm-hmm. It's hard to really put a number to such a big property, square footage, because there's so many variables, right? So like, I learned that was good and bad, right? Good because I felt good about it. Bad because I had no control. My first flip took me a year, 1 full year, right? And it was in the city of Yonkers where I live, which is the toughest place to do business, right? Yes. To get permits, to get everything if you don't know somebody, right? So, so I learned out of that transaction that smaller houses are better, right? your 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,500 to 2,000 square feet home, you could not, you could get it done in like a month and move on to the next one, right?
Right.
So, in the process, of making this house so beautiful, we knocked down walls. I thought the house was going to collapse. It was just a mess, right? We made money, but, I was proud of it because it was my first one, right? But then at the end, having the money tied up for a year, it wasn't really a profitable deal.
So actually,
I got my doctorate. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, and I've heard many people talk about that, right? Whether you're trying to invest in stock for the first time or you're real estate investing, you're starting to put a syndication together. It's not about, and as you said before, it's not about that dollar you're making on that first deal. You're paying for a college education in whatever you do, no matter what you do. It may come on the first deal, it may come on the 10th deal, but at some point you're going to pay for that college education, right? And so I love hearing that. And actually your example I think is great because I wanted to also find out from you really what was sort of your biggest flop. Now, would you say that you may have had something in your whole career of flipping that you really looked at and said, that was a flop and I learned this from it? Or was it also that first deal which was the one you're most proud of?
Yeah, it was, like I'll tell you, I think that in life you win and lose, right? And you can't just win, right? And it was a tough deal. It was a great deal. It was my first deal, right? It was a tough deal. It took me a year, right? So I tied up a lot of money, and all the money I had, I tied it up in my first deal for a year, right? And I thought I was doing the right thing because you look at these retarded TV shows and they want to make every house beautiful, and some houses don't need a $500 vanity, right? Mm-hmm. Some houses just need $100 vanity, and like not marble, and I learned the wrong way, right? Thank God I had everything in an Excel spreadsheet and I figured it out. My first contractor told me I could put a driveway in that house. We put a driveway in that house. And then the city of Yonkers came and shut us down. Mm-hmm. And then we had to take the blacktop off. It was just kind of like real estate for dummies. You know what I mean? But, you learn,
That's it, right? As long as the next time that you got to do it differently, right? Then that's really what it takes, right?
Absolutely.
In the whole process of flipping houses, what is your favorite part? What do you just get excited about? I feel like you may get excited about a lot of different parts of it, but what's your favorite?
The buying part.
So the actual hunting for that deal, right?
Hunting for that deal, getting that deal and having options to do whatever you want with that deal, with whether it's like keeping and holding it, right? Whether it's fixing and flipping it, or whether it's assigning it to somebody else, or like wholesaling it, right? Because when you buy right, somebody will pay you. I'll tell you, I did a deal last year in Sleepy Hollow. I purchased at the auction, purchased it for I want to say $400. I assigned the bid for $450. We bought it for $400. We assigned it for $550.
Wow!
Assigned it, right? Which is, talk about buying right, right?
Yeah,
and knowing the market, right? And knowing the market, like all these guys at the auction didn't really realize that it was a good property because they didn't understand valuation, right? So to me, it's like the valuation part is probably the crucial part, because even if you buy right, and you do everything wrong, like my first deal, you'll still break even.
Yep.
Right.
And so actually, before I get to one of the other questions, Meg had asked a question in our chat a little while ago, and she said, "Don't you think it's better to know how to value a house without a realtor? Why would you trust somebody else's valuation?" So I think what you just said sort of touches to that. Do you want to maybe dive in a little further?
Yeah, listen. I don't think I'll tell you, I was a realtor, and a lot of people thought they knew real estate, and I would say, listen, how many houses have you sold? And they would say one. And how long of a period of time? In 20 years. So how could you tell me about valuation, right? you know, any career, any business that you do that you have to do repetition, it's where you learn, right? And, you know, we learn adjustments. We learn how much one more bedroom will add or how much a basement adds. And listen, that doesn't mean the realtor's 100% right, but you get a valuation, right? And that you agree to the valuation or not agree with the valuation. But if I'm talking to somebody that knows what they're doing, I have to take into consideration their opinion. And I'll tell you what I'm doing now because I have a lot of friends in real estate. Listen, I probably sold more houses than the guys that are selling houses for me, right? But I ask for 4 opinions of realtors, right? Friends of mine, I say, how much is 123 Main Street? Give them the specs. You don't have to go see the house. Give me your gut value because gut is always better than anything. And then I compare it to my value. Now, when I compare it to my value, maybe my value is a little heavily weighted more. But I also have 5 other sources, right? And, you know, listen, everybody's wrong. Like, you know, like I could be right all the time, but it happens that I buy this one and I'm wrong. And it's happened to me, to a guy like me that knows valuation. I've been wrong, right? So it's actually good to have other people's opinion, right?
Right. And I think what I would kind of add to that is, you know, you may be seeking a realtor's opinion in the beginning, right? When you don't have 100 houses under your belt or 100 sales, and it's really a matter of getting those multiple bids, let's say, right? Multiple contractors giving you a price, multiple realtors giving you a valuation until you've done enough that you feel confident in your evaluation capabilities, right?
So let me say one thing, right? So whoever says, why would you trust a realtor's opinion is probably somebody doesn't have a relationship with a realtor. If I had a relationship with a realtor, I would trust their opinion. Now, I might not agree with their opinion, but you know, I think realtors are a lot of times like people think they bring no value, and if you have a relationship with them, you know, with a realtor, that realtor is going to tell you the hot properties. They're going to tell you whatever they see, whatever it's off market, and they're going to tell you the truth because they value the relationship, right? Now, if I'm an investor and I call you and I don't know you and I was like, do you have any hot deals for me? Why would you even give me a hot deal, right?
Right. Right.
So,
yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think if you don't value someone's opinion, there isn't enough of a relationship, and it is as simple as that, really.
right.
So, and then Joanne had asked, what is your valuation process? So for someone who may be new to this, I don't know her experience level, but let's just say you were to take a look at something. Let's say even that property in Sleepy Hollow that was you picked up for 400 and was able to wholesale for 550. What generally would you do to value a property?
So, you know, first of all, you know, there's 3 valuation styles, right? Like the comparable analysis where we all know what house is sold in our neighborhood for what price within 25% range of square footage and everything else, right? 1 bedroom, 1 bath. That's probably the most accurate, but that's a number right? So like, you know, those are past comps of what's sold. Now you got to look at what's happening in the marketplace, right? Like today, what's happening in the marketplace. So do you adjust or do you not adjust, right? The second way to evaluate something is the replacement cost, right? How much will it cost to build that house again if it burns, right? Land plus whatever, right? And then the third approach is the appreciation, right? Which is probably the least used. But I could say today, if a house sold in 2007 for X, and should I pay more or less? Right? And then you evaluate what's happening in the marketplace, and then you take 3 approaches, and then you give it a value. Not all the values are going to be the same, right? But it takes a lot of time to do all this stuff, right? Like, you know, look at what happened in 2007, post 2007. What did that property sell for, right? compared to now, and you do the comparable approach, and you never take the highest comp. That's the biggest issue that most people do, right? Especially realtors, right? Realtors that don't have a relationship with you will say, well, there's 3 comps. One sold $1 million, the other one sold at 900, the other one 850, so it's worth $1 million. Well, that's a realtor has no relationship with you, because a realtor that has a good relationship with you is going to take you, listen, we'll probably look between the lowest 2 comps. And if you want to be safe, if you're an investor and you're looking to fix and flip, you got to take 20, 30% off what the resale value would be to actually make profit. Minus ARV, right?
Yep. Do you happen to think that there's, let's say, a cutoff in certain markets where flipping just won't work?
So, when you start doing a business, right, you have to have a model and a system that you have to follow, right? Because, the brain is our best friend and our biggest enemy, right? It could take you one way and it could take you a different way, right? So you have to have a model of what you're doing. You can't be flipping $1 million houses and then entry-level houses, right? Because you're going to focus on whatever you focus that and build through it, right? So I'll give you an example. If you're entry level in Yonkers, probably 450, right? New Rochelle's probably 450, 500, right? So if you learn that market, then the second purchase and the third purchase are going to make sense, right? Like if I paid this, sometimes it's logic. If I paid this for this house, or if this guy did this house for this and paid this, and his markup is X, then it's going to work. Now, I'll tell you what happened in 2007. As a realtor, I worked as 2007. Opening price points never slowed down, right? Houses, in post 2007, $1 million houses didn't sell for like close to a year. Not one house in Westchester sold for, because people didn't need to sell it. But the houses that were distressed, people that needed to move to Westchester needed to buy a house versus renting a house, and the price was the same to rent a house and to buy a house, that market moved. I'll tell you, I learned a lot from investors. Mount Vernon, Yonkers, New Rochelle, they moved. Back then it was $350,000, $400,000 market. Now it's a $450,000, $550,000 market, right? I don't know if it makes sense.
Yes, no, that does. Absolutely. And I also, I do want to talk, well, let's get to this question before I ask the other one, but, so your big why, what drives you? What makes you want to do this every day? Get up every morning and hustle.
So, the big why changes, right? As you evolve, right? And my big why is to change people's lives. And, most people don't even understand what that means, right? I've been fortunate. I came to the U.S. when I was 17 years old, $5 in my pocket. I was illegal at that time. So anything was good for me. You know what I mean? And once you get to a level where you're comfortable financially, and you never had a path, nobody showed you a path because everybody thought that you were competition to somebody. I want to show everybody how to make money, right? Or how to do what I know how to do without even compensation to me, right? Because the world, works in different ways, right? When you give, you most likely get. And if you don't get, it's okay, right? So changing people's lives. And I'll tell you, I've been kind of successful at doing it,
Yeah, I love hearing that, man, because it truly, it's 100% true. And I would say I see how excited Rochelle is hearing that too, right? That's partly why, we keep this group going and we keep meeting with everybody, because
Absolutely.
it's just a matter of seeing that spark, right? That spark opens up and then somebody's life goes in a different direction and they end up helping other people and changing other people's lives. It's a wonderful thing.
Especially in times like this, you know what I mean? There's fog out there and there's no clarity. And if you just say something, and you guys are doing great with this group, and something that you might say, or like I might say, or anybody might say, might impact somebody's life without you knowing it.
Yep.
And you don't even have to know that you changed somebody's life, right? This is a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. So I also want to touch upon you just being an incredible entrepreneur in general, right? Aside from just the flipping and your start in real estate. But I'd like you to kind of share some of the other things that you're doing, other streams. I can say I highly recommend. I hope you talk a little bit about the restaurant and everything that you're doing there. It's a wonderful, and if you get a chance, you're in the New Rochelle area, I think you should absolutely stop by as soon as you can. He'll be open again tomorrow. So talk a little bit about the other things that you've got going on.
Yeah. So after after you achieve certain kind of success, and I'm a humble guy. I mean, I don't need to live off a lot of money to begin with, right? I don't have a mansion. I'm just a simple guy. I don't spend that much money. I invest most of my money. I decided to open a restaurant. It was always my dream. I have zero experience in the restaurant business, but I have a lot of experience in the team building business, right? So I took a restaurant, I acquired a restaurant that was already existing, wasn't doing well. And within 2 months, 3 months, we were killing it. I'll tell you, killing it. And, we were in our 2-year anniversary in July, but 3-4 months ago, people were, we were voted best rotisserie chicken in Westchester County. We were voted, just so many things organically, like we're not the type of people that say, oh, the best of Westchester's here. Vote for me, vote for me, vote for me. You'll never hear that from me, because it's like, listen, if you earn it, people will tell you, right? People were coming from Staten Island, Brooklyn, New Hartford, Chappaqua to eat a Peruvian restaurant, right? So my idea was to franchise it, and we're still looking to franchise. We got to open 4 or 5 restaurants to have a proven concept, and take those individuals that like everything I do, I build wealth for people. So chefs, everybody, I have a profit sharing model, which is I learned from my previous company, kind of similar to your company, which it's part of my business model. And then I have a construction company, I do coaching, consulting, and I don't do it just because I want the money. I do it because I want people's success, right? And I coach a lot of agents, a lot of people that want to fix and flip. I collaborate with people. Just because of your group, I had 3 or 4 people last week asking me about their potential flips, and I was like, I ran the numbers without, obviously you never ask for an address, because if you ask for an address, people think that you might want to go buy it, right?
Right.
But, the logistics, people that, like it's not what it seems to be, right? So, fortunate, I'll tell you, I'm looking to open other businesses when I meet the right people and the right opportunity comes. I'll invest, because when most people don't,
Yeah, and I think that's it's a very strong position to take, right? It's being confident in the skills that you've learned, and then taking those skills and just kind of shifting and pivoting, right, as things come along.
Right.
I think that's great. So I guess real quick before we go into some of the other questions that have come up in the box, why don't you let everybody know what's the best way to contact you or find out more about you? You can even put it in the chat box if you want to give a number or an email or something of that nature.
Yeah, I'll everybody probably, you guys tagged me on your Facebook page.
Yep.
So Facebook is probably the easiest thing for me. You can message me there. You can do Instagram, but I'm a little on the older side, so I don't really do too much Instagram.
Are you on TikTok yet?
No. It took me a while to get an Instagram, so
Would you say that you're still at the restaurant very frequently? If people are going to stop by there, might they see you there as well?
Listen, I'll tell you this. I go to the restaurant every single day. I do most of my business from there. When we were able to sit down, I used to talk to every person. I'll tell you, not only will you have the best chicken of your life if you like chicken and other Peruvian dishes, but I'll tell you, even if you pay $20 for that food and you pick my brain, you'll get a lot of value at it. I mean, Adam and you were introduced to me by another realtor.
Yep.
And we had a great conversation, not, impromptu. That's just, I'm a giving guy. So like, you just pick my brain and you don't owe me any.
Yeah, it was great food and great conversation. I mean, what else could you really want, especially if you like real estate?
Right.
So Rochelle did put it in there. She put a link to the website, myjuicychicken.com. It's right there in downtown New Rochelle near the train station. So if you are coming from out of the area, you can jump on the train and walk right from the train station. So, always happy. I'm happy to meet anybody there too. If anybody wants company, we can head over there. So a couple of the questions that we did get, we addressed one of Meg's, which was about the evaluation and that sort of thing. So another question that she asked was, how would you generally get rid of occupants when you possibly buy a property? Maybe talk about some of the challenges in buying an auction property, right? Getting rid of tenants, certain things that liens and broken stuff, or
Yeah, great. It's a great question. I'll tell you, it's a great question. Just so you guys know, I've made the most amount of money on properties that were occupied. Right? Just for one simple reason. Most people are afraid of them. Right? And when there's people that are afraid of them, there's less bidders. If there's less bidders, you get a better price. Right? So number one is offer money. Right? You got to talk to people, knock on the doors, talk to the tenants or the owners. If it's the previous owners, is a little easier, right? Because they know they got to leave and they have no lease existing, right? If they're tenants, if they have a lease, you got to look at their lease. But the best thing is to offer money and start in small amounts, and then think about how much it's going to cost you to evict somebody. An attorney's going to charge you probably $2,000 to $3,000 just to appear in court, and then you're going to have to pay somebody cash for keys regardless. How long is that tenant or owner going to be there? Probably 5-6 months if the court is nice, right? And then you factor everything, and you're better off giving that amount in your second to third attempt and get them out within 1 to 2 months. If they stay, then you're in trouble, because they're going to milk you. And what's going to happen is you're going to have to hire an attorney. They're going to get a court date, and then tenants know that they don't have to show up to the first one, and they're going to adjourn, and then they're going to go through the system, right? So your best bet is to offer cash for keys, and don't do anything crazy like threaten them or any of that stuff, because believe it or not, that doesn't work.
Great advice. Thank you. And then Joanne asked, what is your target area? How far out do you spread? And do you feel, is there enough to go around for everyone?
Absolutely. There's more than enough, right? And you just got to remember that your average flip is probably $50,000 to $60,000 in profit, right? That's what most people are making or try to make. I'm not comfortable with that, to be honest with you. I want a bigger return, right? So I'm not buying everything, because I need to make sure that if I buy something, worst case scenario, I'll break even, right? So I do all of the Bronx, Westchester. I just started picking up some stuff in Long Island, but there's plenty for everybody, and it's how active you become, right? And what activities you do to find deals. The name of the game is not to go to the auction. The name of the game is to find deals off market, not even through a wholesaler. The wholesaler's involved, great, they're going to make some money, but the wholesaler is going to blast an email to everybody. You want to be the first one. If somebody dies and you got to be in contact, kind of respectfully, tactfully, but you got to be in contact with that person, because the heirs are going to sell the property, and most people don't care. If you have a divorce attorney, those are the contacts you need.
Yep. Great advice. And so would you say, when it comes to an area, right? I mean, I was in project management for a while, right? I can understand you have a full crew. Would you say that that has a lot to do with the radius that you actually service? It's trying to keep your crews from having to travel too much, or is that not as much of an issue?
Well, it's funny. Like COVID happened, and we did a deal in Long Island that I would never do, right? So it's like it's how you see the world, right? Like we were driving to Long Beach when it takes you 2.5 hours, and we were doing 35 minutes, right? So
Right.
there's opportunity in everything that happens, right? So, but the only reason I keep to Long Island, to Westchester and the Bronx is because I know it well. And all the books you read and all the gurus you talk to, they say be within a 20 to 25-mile radius of your investment so that you could go and check on them. I'll tell you, I've had properties in Poughkeepsie and Cortland where I haven't visited in 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
That's super dangerous.
Right.
Super dangerous because all of a sudden you go in and pipes busted in the winter and your reno, you got to do all over again. And it's happened to me.
Yep, absolutely. Another question is, what things would you be most interested in being contacted about? If somebody wanted to, connect with you and learn about something or offer something, what would be a great thing for them to be?
Listen, I'm interested in helping people, right? The only thing I'm not interested in is in getting mortgages and people soliciting for mortgages, right? I mean, listen, if I have the time, I'll get to everybody. Maybe a day or 2 days late, but I'll get back to people. Listen, you make time to help people, right? And then people will help you. I mean, that's just the way it rolls,
Yep. If there were, and so I believe for a couple of people we did mention, we're asked about the restaurant. So it is Juicy Chicken. It's the name of the restaurant.
Yes.
Right. What is the address over there?
6th Division Street, New Rochelle.
Yep.
It's between Huguenot and Main Street.
Yep. So 6th Division Street. And Rochelle, maybe you can type that into the chat box in case somebody needs to see it. Frank asked us, what kind of education course relating to real estate would you recommend to a new investor? And, or would you say just mostly being self-taught through podcasts, books, videos, and that sort of thing would be the route to go?
Well, I'll tell you, anything that's paid is no good, right? If you're going to pay for a $6,000 course on how to flip houses, you just went to the wrong source, right? So number one is understanding valuation. You got to look at a lot of houses, right? So looking at houses online all the time, that also helps, right? And then if you wanted to take a course, maybe it's an appraisal course, right? So to understand it objectively without any emotions, like, oh, my house is worth more than somebody else's house because it's my house and it has gold faucets, right? Like, understanding valuation is just the numbers. And if you could kind of like learn from an appraisal or take an appraisal course, it'll probably help you. It'll probably save you hours of learning.
I think that is awesome advice. I mean, I can say I was happy to get my real estate license because I feel like I learned what magic, the agents know, right? And it helped me to be able to value things and just really know the inner workings of it. I couldn't agree more with you. I think an appraisal course is a wonderful thing. Even a home inspection course, right? If you really want to understand the construction and how things are built, getting that kind of a license or something, it could absolutely aid in that.
Yeah. I mean, you'll start seeing things that you wouldn't see, right? So that's the name of the game.
Absolutely. So let's see. And then again, Louis, your Facebook contact, it's just Louis Fernandez, right? So actually,
I think it's L. Fernandez Realtor. I think I still have my realtor.
Okay, so we can actually try to tag that also on our Westchester Real Estate Investors page. I know if you do go to the Facebook page for our group, you will see that we tagged him directly his personal page. on the posts that were up there the last couple days. And I would say if anybody else has any other questions, I mean, please feel free to put those into the chat box. I'm pretty much done on the interview side with the questions I had set up. If there's anything you guys feel like we maybe didn't hit, or you've got a burning question, please throw those into the chat box and we can get to them. Another one that just came in, Lewis. Do you primarily flip? And if so, what is the extent of your work? So if you want to...
All right, so that's a great question too.
Yeah, it is.
In the beginning, I thought, especially the first house, I thought like a complete reno was the greatest thing because I did it, right? And it made me proud. But I try to do the as little amount possible, right? That will allow for the house to be competitive with every house on the market. So I'll give you an example. When I first started doing business with a contractor, we were doing business in New Rochelle, and he's a Scarsdale guy. And he would say, well, Lewis, these windows are not Andersen windows, right? And I was like, in New Rochelle, in this area, you don't need Andersen windows. You need windows that are Home Depot windows because that's good enough, right? Do you need granite, or do you need quartz, or do you need marble, right? So the extent of the work is defined by the price point and the surrounding houses and what they're offering, right? So a lot of times the houses that I'm doing, I did a lot in Mount Vernon, New Rochelle, and Yonkers. And my houses were 10 times better priced at the same price than old houses. So obviously my houses would sell faster. So it really depends on the location of what you do. But I try to do as minimal as possible. Try to stay away from electric, plumbing if needed, because you need permits for those, and do just cosmetic stuff. Now, if you need to add a bathroom, that's going to be a 3 to 6 month project. You know what I mean? Because of permits.
Yep. No, I think that's great advice. I've got this troublemaker over here asking you if you have a signature touch that you add to all of your homes.
No, no. I just listen.
You don't have that? There's no light up bidet that you put in every one of the bathrooms?
No. I just it's funny because like people that are working in certain areas, they'll see that they'll know it's my house because what I do is I buy in bulk from Home Depot. So what I do, and this is a good tip for people, establish relationship with managers because Home Depot and Lowe's discount product 25, 50, and 75%. And when it hits that 50 to 75%, I'm the first call because I feed them, and I'm able to buy a lot of material 30 to 40% cheaper than anybody else, which puts money into my bottom line, right? And I warehouse it, right? So I buy 4 pallets of tile, or whatever, right? And so all my houses look the same. They have the same tile, the same backsplash, same cabinets, and that's how you start saving a little money too.
Yeah, and what does your warehousing look like? I mean, do you have a building somewhere?
It's just a garage, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a garage, and we're moving enough inventory that's in and out, and I just buy stuff that I know I'm gonna move, and the 2 most important parts of a house are the kitchen and bathrooms, right? And hardwood floors if you lay hardwood floors. So if you have nice backsplash, nice tile, nice cabinets, and quartz or granite, you're golden, right? You put a little research lighting, same thing with the bathroom. So that's what we stock for the most part, and that's what really goes on sale the most, right?
Absolutely. So another question that came in for a newbie, where can you get financing for a flip? Do you use hard money or conventional?
So I'll tell you guys, 99% of the people that are doing it with hard money. I don't believe in hard money because it gets you into a dangerous situation. It could get you into a dangerous situation. Typically a year term, if your project goes upside down, especially your first one, the interest rates go from maybe right now they're 10, 11%. to 24% the following year with points, it could really screw you. So what I would try to do is either team up with somebody, do friends and family, and raise the cash, put some of your money. If you have equity in your house, take money out of your equity of the house, take money against a 401k, but pay yourself. Don't pay hard money. I mean, it's just, to me, it's too dangerous. And I'll tell you what just happened. I know guys that bought five, 6 houses with hard money. COVID happened, they're stuck. You know what I mean? You still got to make those payments. So friends and family is probably the first avenue to go.
And to your point, I think you made a touch on it. For those who need a little more information, we can always get that to you. But with the CARES Act, they did change the withdrawal requirements or amounts that you can do from your 401k. So if you already had a loan out, I think you were allowed to take up to $50,000. Now they bumped that up to $100,000. You could also take out $100,000 without any penalty, just paying the tax on it, things like that. So there are a couple creative things if you do have a sizable 401k, given what's going on right now, that could actually give you a really good bump as you're trying to do. Or even if you don't, you may know somebody that does, and you can pay them a lower interest rate than maybe hard money or something to that effect. So definitely keep looking out.
The name of the game is really to raise capital. If you can raise capital, even if you have to partner up with somebody, it's just safer. You know what I mean?
Right. Again, we're trying to get that college education, right? And if it means giving
right.
away the profit when you start, you've learned from that first one, and you'll be able to keep the profit.
You know, Adam, the first time I started doing this, I was like, my attitude was this, right? I'll buy a fix and flip. If I can't sell it, I'll live in it, right? So, listen, and if it goes wrong, I'll live in it. I'll hold it for 2-3 years, and then I'll sell it, and the profits, you know, like after 2 to 3 years, living 3 out of the last 5 years that you own the property, you don't have to pay taxes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and if you have a spouse, it's $500,000 exempt for your personal residence. So I was like, listen, if that's what happens, that's what happens. You know what I mean? So you have to have plan B. You know what I mean?
Yep, absolutely. And so for some people, because it does seem like we do have a couple new people that have joined us tonight, a lot of these things that Lewis is talking about may just be turning on light bulbs for you right now. And we're going kind of quick through some of these things. So what I would say is keep writing these things down. If there's something that has piqued a little bit of interest, or you're unsure when it comes to the tax savings you can have by living in a property for the last 2 of the past 5 years, or whatever it may be, something like that. You know, there's a lot of people that have done it or know about it, and we can get more information to you at some point. Lewis, got another question for a newbie. They'd like to know what type or types of marketing do you find, I guess, retrieves motivated sellers? Is there anything that you've done in particular that you found has worked better?
Well, I'll tell you the most effective and the one that costs the least, right, is calling and knocking on doors, right? I gave you an example of, you know, somebody dies in your neighborhood. They're gonna sell the house, and most people live out of state. You know, the heirs live out of state. You should be contacting, right? And then you want to get a little more aggressive. Then you could buy lists and walk your neighborhood, right? Look for vacant homes. You know, if you see vacant homes, they're most likely gonna sell at one point, right? You know, I do postcards, I do calling, I do everything, but you know, you can't replace the one-on-one touch, right?
Absolutely. And you know, even given COVID, right, with us being in a state of emergency, right, they've put a block on being able to cold call, right? And even now, door knocking, right? If you show up at somebody's door.
Not as an investor.
Oh, as an investor, it's okay?
As an investor, you could call, yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
as a realtor, you can't
from a real estate side of things.
Right.
But even to that point, right, you may feel a little more limited in general, right? One thing I would also suggest is it's just reaching out to the people that you know, right? Whether it be your friends, your family, and ask, do they know anybody that just lost a loved one, that needs to sell a property, that maybe is getting divorced or some hardship, whatever it may be. And it's just, connecting the dots,
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, so let's see. We also got a question. What is your biggest goal right now? And I feel like you may have touched on it, but do you have a specific goal that you would tell everybody?
Well, my goal, aside from changing people's lives, is to really expand to New York City, right? I'm already doing business in the Bronx. I would love to do business in Queens, Long Island, and Brooklyn. But my idea is to build a team and have other investors team up with me and work those areas. I could only be at the auction in Westchester in the Bronx. But there's other people that need to be in Long Island and Queens, right? So building a business that is scalable, that could do some big numbers, right? And it's not about the money; it's about perhaps a legacy or what you could build through people and affect people, right?
Yeah, I love that. I think that's great. Very good. Well, and that looks like it's all of the questions that we've gotten. I don't know if, let me unmute Rochelle, see if she's got anything else that she wants to add, our troublemaker for the night. Maybe I can't. Oh, there you go. You should be unmuted, Rochelle.
That was awesome, Louis. Thank you so much.
Oh, no problem. My pleasure.
A lot of value in that, and I'm sure a lot of people would agree. And so if anybody needs, Louis, he does. Do you want to talk about your mentorship group? Because I know you have something like that. Do you want to touch on that real quick?
Yeah, well, basically, I do consulting and coaching for a lot of people, and I have other groups that I touch on that. I believe that the mind is everything, and if you feed the mind the right stuff, everybody could succeed. And it's simple as saying a quote a day or saying the right things to people to influence our thinking and being proactive and being positive, right? Especially during these times, you know what I mean? So like I'm friends with a lot of people and I want more friends just because, if we could all come together and collaborate, I'm sure I'll learn a lot of things from the newbies too. You know what I mean? Because you don't know it all. You know what I mean?
I want to share a real quick story of how Louis and I met because, I'm on social media. I'm pretty active, but I don't really make it a habit of adding people that I don't know. That's just me. Not that there's anything wrong with anyone who does that. But I saw his profile picture come up in people you might know, and because I am involved in these meetups and I've met a lot of people, his face looked very familiar. So I clicked add, and then either one of us sent a message and I said, "Oh, I'm pretty sure I know you from the meetups." And he's like, "No, definitely not, because I don't think we've ever spoken." And I said, "Oh, okay, but we have mutual friends." So, and Adam was one of them. So this is how we met. And
right.
And so then we ended up like going back and forth on Facebook Messenger. And I was like, "Hey, can we chat over the phone?" And we had such a great conversation, and he told me about his restaurant, and I actually run a foodie group, and I was like super thrilled about this Peruvian restaurant, which, by the way, guys, it's absolutely amazing. So I ended up going there. Then Louis and I met for coffee, and this is like in the fall, right? I believe.
Yes.
Yeah. And so anyway, one of those people that you just you're happy to have in your circle. So, add them on Facebook. If you're into fix and flips and you're looking for someone to be able to trust in the industry, I couldn't recommend Louis more. So, he's a big part of our Facebook group that we're trying to grow. And so please reach out to him. He's the real deal.
Oh, thank you so much.
And I mean, the biggest frustration as a realtor and someone who appreciates properties is when you go into a flip and it looks like nobody who cares about the property ever walked through it and said, this needs to be done, and this needs to be done, and this needs to be cleaned, and this, right? if you take a look at the pictures, even, obviously it's tough to get to some of these properties right now, but if you look at the pictures of Lewis's properties, you'll see. I mean, they're beautiful. They're clean. Their attention to details there, right? That is the biggest thing when you get into a property that has just been rehabbed, or you're looking to see what to do. It needs to feel complete, right? It needs to be solid. It needs to look right. It needs to feel right. If it doesn't, somebody's stealing from you, right? They're trying to get too much money from you because it's not worth it, right? So, really take a look at some of the work he's done. He's posting pictures of the stuff, the befores and the afters, and it's all beautiful.
Yeah. And Lewis, I know you have so much stuff going on, but sometime if you have the chance to maybe do like a small little case study of like how much you bought it for, how much you put into it, because people really love to see that stuff, especially new people. And, it kind of gives inspiration and encouragement to the group.
I'll give you a quick synopsis, right? So you're on a smaller house, under 2,000 square feet, you shouldn't be spending more than $40 to $50 a square feet.
Good.
Right? If you're doing more, then you're overspending. And I know that in Westchester it's very tough to go by square feet, right? Westchester real estate is not really evaluated by square feet, but it's what I found. And if you could stay in the 30 to 40, you're probably going to be profitable as long as you bought at the right place.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, you spend 50 to 60, hopefully no more than that. You're in and out in 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Nice.
Because you don't want to tie up the money for more. I mean, ideally you want to get rid of a property in 6 months, but sometimes it's a year. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And one thing I'll tell you, don't get discouraged by what's happened COVID-19. I'll tell you, I had 2 or 3 properties that fell through during COVID-19, and I was a mess too. And I was like, oh my God, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And because the influx of buyers from New York City are coming like crazy here, both of my property, all the properties that fell through because people lost their jobs are in contract again, or over asking, or over what I got, right? Which tells you the market is really strong, right? Don't believe this stuff. I mean, I think, and Adam, you could probably comment on this. In New York, it takes 3 to 5 years to foreclose on a house, so we're not going to see that right away. Maybe in 3 to 4 years, and then some people are going to be desperate with the forbearance. Nobody's going to really, prices are not going to drop. I mean, my initial opinion was they'll probably drop 10 to 15% at most. But seeing what's happening and the influx of buyers coming, it might not drop. But the person that's desperate to sell their house is just going through a fear process, and they'll just sell. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. For those, not that many people here, I think, know my background, but I had a very large truck that I put a lot of money into, ran on vegetable oil for a number of years. And that truck meant so much to me, and I valued it quite high when I was trying to sell it. It got to a point where I couldn't keep it any longer. I had to get rid of it. And I basically gave it away is basically what happened. And I never thought I would ever do that. But it's the same thing. It doesn't matter if it's your house, if it's a car, whatever, right? You may hold that value at a certain place. But when you're up against a wall and you have no other option, it's better to get rid of it and get nothing for it in some cases than it is to hold on to it and get dragged down with it, and it's that motivation. That's where those deals come from.
And you hit it dead on, because, people always want a price till they get beat up, right, by life. And then eventually they end up selling. And even if you see properties on the MLS, they start at 500. A year and a half later, sell for 350. Right? When life circumstances change, it's motivation. And if you're the only one that's there, still following up, that's your deal. Right?
Yep, absolutely. You got to be in the right place at the right time, and there's nothing that replaces follow up. You may feel like you're annoying, but you'll end up with the deal,
Yep.
and that's really what it comes down to.
I want to share a quick story about follow up. So there's a property that's getting renovated across from us, and it's an apartment like it's a 3-family house. It's an apartment. It's getting renovated. So this little old lady, she's down the street, and she walks by every single day. And she asked me who the owner of the property was, because I was walking up there with my daughter. So I said, "Oh, I know her. I know who she is." She's like, "Oh, I want to get in touch with her because I want to be able to. I know somebody who wants to rent the apartment." And so I said, "Okay, well, maybe put your contact information in the mailbox." And she's like an elderly lady. She's like maybe in her late 60s. So
That's
every
not
single
elderly. Come on.
every single day, this woman would come by the property every day, and she would talk to the contractor who was, fixing the house up, ask about the owner, ask if the owner had been there today. And finally, she got a hold of the owner. And she said, "I want to rent this place." She's like, I actually live down the street. I'm a home health aide for an elderly man, and I've been living in his home, but I want my own space." And she's like, "I walk by this house every day, and it has a beautiful porch on it." And she said, "I've always dreamed of living here." She said, "Since I've lived in this neighborhood." So the landlord said, and I'm friends with the landlord, so she was telling me the story, and she said, I said, "Okay, So she said the lady continued to come by every single day after asking. And she said, I had it in my mind to rent to a little family that was coming from the city. And so she said every day she came by relentlessly asking me, "Please rent to me. I'm begging you. I love this place. I will take care of it. The guy who I look after is 2 houses down. This would be perfect for me." Finally, the landlord said to her, "Okay, I'm going to rent to you." And she got exactly what she wanted for it in rent. And, she's just a little old lady with a little tiny dog. And, it's perfect. I mean, it's not going to be a lot of wear and tear on her renovated unit. But that is the power of the follow-up. Fortune is in the follow-up. And so if you're relentless about it, and you don't have to be mean or annoying, but just follow up every single day, you're not going to get ignored at the end of the day. You're probably going to get what you're asking for. So yeah, that was a great little lesson for me.
Absolutely.
I was going to say something to that, but yeah, no, that's a great example for sure. But all right, well, I think unless there's I haven't seen any other questions come through on the little message board. Hopefully, we'll be all able to get back together in person at Uncle Henry's at some point. Although I heard Uncle Henry's was having an issue couple weeks ago. I guess they were not just doing takeout. People were hanging out at the bar a little too long, and I heard they got in trouble. But
oh no,
we just hope that they're still there for us once this whole thing is over. So, but thank you all for coming. And again, if you need anything, you've got all our contact information. And Louis, again, thank you so much. And so you are opening up tomorrow at the restaurant, right?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you guys so much.
Very good. And actually with opening up, is it decreased? Can people actually eat in yet, or is it just
No. We're just takeout, curbside. That's what we're dealing with now.
We'll be by to support you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming, everybody.
All right. Take care, guys.